Me. All right. Welcome, CvCISO podcast listeners. This is episode we don't know because Meg's not here to tell us what number this one is. This is Evan and Jordan. We have no supervision today. The boys are here. We have no supervision, so I have no idea what. I know it'll be controversial, right?
But it's Jordan's topic.
Jordan, what's the topic today?
Man, let's talk Doge. Today we're gonna talk about Doge. Have you guys heard about this? It's all over the news.
So it's Doge. It's not doggy?
Doge. Is it doggy?
D-O-G-E, doggy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's talk about the doggies. We're going to talk doggies. We're going to talk wasteful spending. We're going to talk efficiency. We're going to talk controversy.
Right.
So stick around if you want to get all upset.
Well, I'm just so fired up with this divisive topic we're talking about today because instead of using my logic and reason to think through this, I'm going to get emotional.
Yes. Anger.
Yeah. And what I'll probably do is attack your character, Jordan. I'm going to be honest.
You should. There's a lot to attack.
You bigot.
But I will just attack back.
I just called you a bigot.
You're a bigot.
Damn, didn't expect that. All right, let's move on then.
So I popped in some NeuroGum.
What?
Hey, it's supposed to give you energy and focus. So I want to be really focused in, and maybe they'll sponsor our show.
Does it work?
I'm feeling pretty focused.
Are you neuroed?
My neuros are neuroning. And so if you hear me click clacking gum, I know that's probably annoying. Or maybe
clickety clack. Yeah. This is what I took this morning. Beyond my normal, what do I call those things? Vitamins?
Yes.
Beyond my normal vitamins. I have
caffeine.
Caffeine pills. Have you ever taken caffeine pills?
Mm-mm.
Pretty fun, really. About 150 milligrams per pill here.
Is that how many cups of coffee is that?
2-ish, 70 cups of, about 1 cup of coffee is like 70 milligrams of caffeine, I think, ish on average, maybe. So
we're energized.
Dude, I've never been more energized than I am at this moment. I mean, yeah, what?
Your voice is nice. I hear
I have a cold. I'm actually really tired. It's been a long week, but anyway, I do want to talk about Doge because you see a lot of shit, especially in this current political environment. And before we started, hit record on the podcast, it was cool because it was your idea and you brought one perspective. And I was thinking, when you brought this up yesterday, I was thinking a totally different perspective. So I think it's really cool to get two different angles on this.
Yeah.
So your perspective, share what you were thinking when you originally thought about this.
So if you've been living under a rock, what's happening is the Trump administration kind of put together this Department of what does it stand for again? Of government-inefficiency. Doge, yep. Doggy.
Yep.
And so they're auditing things, and they're getting access to things like the Treasury Department. They're getting access to databases and information. I don't know what all. I can't. I'm not an expert on this topic, so I'll just preface that. But so maybe we'll figure some things out together. But they're getting access to things, and critics are kind of raising alarms. You hear a lot of people speaking out on this as kind of calling out information security folks, like, hey guys, are you okay with this? They're getting access to things that they don't have clearance for, and this is a problem. And they're kind of saying, hey, you guys should speak up on this. You call yourselves information security professionals. Why are you okay with this clear privacy infringement? And so, I was like, well, let's maybe talk about that. What are the risks of the access that they're getting? Is it really a problem what they're getting access to? And what does that mean for people? What should we be concerned about? Or do we kind of have our blinders on a bit because we want to expose inefficiencies? So are we kind of looking the other way? And so hopefully we can kind of take both sides of this and not get, or take one side really, really passionately so that everyone gets upset. And then our ratings.
I like making people mad. I'm going to be honest. I mean, let's piss some people off. I don't know. No, maybe not. It's been very divisive, right? Because President Trump took office January 20th, and it wasn't long after. And he said he was going to do this, that he was going to create this Department of Government-inefficiency, and Elon Musk was going to head it and whatever. And, they're digging in. They're allegedly that's the thing. You can only consume what you've been told. Like, none of us are actually there. None of us are actually in the shit to validate what's actually happening. So you kind of have to trust somebody in all this. And so allegedly Doge is going through, these various departments. USAID was a big one, and that freaked people out, stop funding for USAID because it's going to these different places. And again, you can only consume what people are telling you. And so it becomes very divisive because you've got one side that's saying like, oh my God, he's just dismantling these government agencies that are so crucial to the government and blah, blah, blah. Then on the other side, it's like, it's all wasted money. Can you believe that they're spending, 100 some millions of dollars on Sesame Street in Iraq? So you've got these, it becomes very divisive. And the cool thing about, I think good security people, I've always said it, is your appreciation of different perspectives, not to get into one, get so stuck on one angle, one view. It goes back to that situational awareness. If I really want to be situationally aware in this, I'll consider all these different angles and reserve judgment until, or look for additional information to support those gaps. So I haven't been emotionally caught up in any of this shit. I know what I know. And, I know that I don't like waste. I know I don't like people taking advantage of other people. So if that's truly what Doge is doing, they're finding these places where we're pissing away money or, helping people that shouldn't be helped, meaning, fraudulent shit. I'm all for it. If it's, government grandstanding and, bullshit and manipulation, well, then obviously, I'm not for that. But it's been very interesting to see the reaction on both sides of this equation, which is really cool. And that would be my advice for anybody listening, and my advice as a security person in general. Don't get all caught up in the emotional bullshit, because then you can't take a step back and actually evaluate what the hell is going on. At the end of the day, me rushing to judgment, there's no benefit for me in doing that. I couldn't do anything about it anyway.
And I think there's a big group of us, kind of put myself in this category, where anything political or anything like in the news, they all push this emotional agenda, and I'm emotionless about it. Like, I don't have enough emotion to care. So I don't feel like it always works on me, because just like you said, like we got these headlines and like this agency that they kind of twist it around sometimes, where it's like, oh, they're shutting down this agency, and that means that they don't like what this agency was supposed to stand for. But that's not true. The agency was supposed to, but they're exposing inefficiency. Like, no matter what the agency was supposed to do, it seems like they don't always do what they're supposed to do. And they spend money on things that are like ridiculous. And so when that starts coming out, it's like, it has nothing to do with not wanting people to get this, what the agency was supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, and that's the advantage of not getting caught up in the shit. And good security people, I think in general, can keep themselves out of that shit, because somebody needs to keep a cool head, use logic and reason to make decisions on how this is going to affect the things that I'm responsible for, meaning my house, my home, the companies that I serve. If you get all caught up, then it starts to get very highly emotional, and that's when you start saying things that you wish you didn't say and doing things you wish you didn't do. Emotion often doesn't lead to really good decision making. I mean, you have to think it through. So the shit that's happening with Doge, we'll have to see. I mean, I know that the inputs that I'm receiving are not like vetted inputs. So it's not like what Elizabeth Warren is saying. It's like, oh, well, that's the truth right there. Or, what Ted Cruz is saying, well, that's the truth. I don't know. And I get into the same discussion with my wife. It's really interesting, not just on Doge, but on other political things. Like, immigration. It's like, she'll read something and she'll be like, can you believe this? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can believe it, but what's the other side? What's the other side of the story? I don't get the other side of the story. There's always multiple sides to a story. There's always multiple perspectives. And if I'm just going to take one side, I become part of the problem. I become the divisive asshole, just like what I'm reading, in a lot of the social media. So staying above the fray, I think it comes easier and more natural for some people. Other people cannot stay out of the fray. They gotta, oh my God. And, they let their emotions get the best of them. And they start saying shit that they shouldn't say.
My wife loves when I'm the devil's advocate when she's talking.
Yeah. No, you gotta,
you should see the other side.
You gotta tread lightly, but it's healthy to see multiple sides of the equation. So with Doge, so on the people that are for it, generally, it's like, yeah, go after it, dismantle the shit, get rid of the waste. I can't believe they're spending money on that. And a lot of that stuff is driven by this anger and frustration of seeing an ineffective government not do things, not serve them well. And so they're very passionate about taking it down, and then on the other side, you've got, and that seems to be so much, kind of the MAGA side, I guess, if you're going to do the sides. There's a lot of people that are like me that are just kind of like, I ain't in either one of these sides. I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck is the right thing to do.
I just want the truth.
Yeah. But on the and then on the Democratish side, the more progressive side, it seems to be finding every excuse and reason possible to discredit it, including our topic of, well, they're going into the Department of Treasury. They just started, I guess, working on the IRS. They're going to have access to all of this really critical, sensitive information about U.S. citizens, all of them. Oh my God, I can't believe, we're just letting them have access to all this information and how it can be used against us and all this stuff. And as a guy who's tried to stay out of the fray, I'm like, you didn't think this fucking information was already out there?
Right.
I mean, you think that this is like, something new, but it's truly an effort to just discredit and dismantle what Doge is doing, as opposed to, is it a legitimate risk and fear? It's really not a legitimate fear. The data's already out there.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people attack Elon Musk about it, and they attack how rich he is. Like that seems to be the biggest argument. He's a billionaire and he's accessing your stuff. And I'm like, I don't know why that factors in. Does it have to be a broke person for us to trust them? I feel like that'd be more risky.
I think it's this distrust that he's going to use this information against you to get more rich, to take more power, more control. Then that might be, I mean, that's an interesting angle to explore. Maybe that's true to some extent. I don't know.
I don't know Musk personally, so I don't know what.
Yeah, I haven't sat down and had a drink with him and be like, hey, why do you do what you do, kind of thing. But people really rush to judgment when they get so emotionally charged.
Yeah. At face value, it seems fine. At face value, you think this is a guy who just formed a team to audit and ask questions about where the spending's happening. And that sounds fine. Like when I first heard that, I didn't personally think, oh man, this is a huge privacy breach. Some headlines are like, this is the biggest breach of all time right under our noses. And it's like, man, that wasn't my first thought. I was just thinking, yeah, let's make sure I don't trust what things are getting spent on, and it's my tax dollars, that I pay tons of, and it's like, yeah, let's see what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, from a security perspective, it's like, did you really trust the federal government was protecting your information before this? I mean, was this like,
it was safe and sound?
Federal government has it so locked down. They never suffer from breaches and all this shit. And then you just open it up to, Elon Musk. It's like, I think maybe you put a little too much trust in the government, the federal government. Because from a security perspective, I know, I've always said complexity is the worst enemy of security. So from an efficiency perspective, the big if that's the purpose of Doge and if that's what they're doing, from a security perspective, this is amazing. This is great. You're getting rid of fat, waste, complication. It's much easier for me to secure, or anybody to secure, a 3-step process versus a 30-step process. It's much easier to secure things when there's 20 accounts versus 2,000 accounts. So if you're truly slimming things down, making things more efficient, that's a lot easier for us to secure. But there were two really big ifs there. One if was if this is what you're actually doing, and if you actually do it, but again, I don't know. I'm not there. I can't see what they're actually doing. And I don't necessarily need to see, because at some level, you just have to put your trust somewhere. But the arguments I'm seeing against it from just a logic perspective they don't hold water. They're very emotional arguments against it.
And what would be, so if we're thinking about those that are up in arms about this, especially from a security perspective, what is the way to do it properly? If they're thinking this is an improper way to do it, these guys shouldn't have access to that, but you do want to audit and make things more efficient. How do you do that in a way that would be acceptable to those people?
Question, man. I don't know. I think you have to be there to make that decision. I mean, that's why, whether you like it or not, whether you're for Trump or not, that's why he was elected, to make these decisions on our behalf. I'm not in that seat. I can't tell you this is the right way to do it, because I don't know. I can't take into account all the contingencies. I can't be responsible with it because, it just, you would want to be very careful with the way you approach it, but you'd also want to be pretty fast about it, because that's part of the strategy, I think, is if Doge exists to dismantle the inefficiencies and the government waste, on the other side of this government waste, that money goes somewhere. It goes into somebody's pocket. That's the waste part, right? It shouldn't go into their pockets because it's not providing value to the U.S. citizens, right? So you have to go I would think you have to go kind of fast before they can build that resistance to stop you from doing it. They have a lot of money. So it's hard to say how I think what I would like an incident response. I've always said that if you are going too fast to document everything, you're going too fast. Mm-hmm. I think one thing I would ensure is that everything that we're doing is very well documented, that there's a good audit trail for the auditors, so that we can demonstrate and prove that when the time is right, these are the steps that we took. We can do that transparency thing, because you can't do the transparency thing up front, probably, because you're going to get resistance. But that's what I'm hoping they do, is that they're actually documenting everything that they're doing and all the steps they're taking, so that when you do face that opposition, it's all factual. It's all this is step by step what we did. Because that would stand up to scrutiny, that would stand up to challenge, when reason sets in. So that's definitely one thing that I would, ensure in terms of the approach. What those steps are, shit, I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, and it seems like they're being pretty transparent about what's happening. But then again, I have a hard time trusting any politics, right? So it's like, a lot of it's a horse and pony show. Like, yeah, see, we're being transparent while under the table something else is happening. I don't know.
Well, there's these illogical arguments about, you read some of the things from the politicians who are against it, and they're just saying things that are completely not true. Like all funding for school, they're going to shut down your schools. Your kids are going to shut down your kids' kindergarten. It's like, most, if not all of the funding for your kids' kindergarten comes from state and local government. It doesn't come from the federal government. So why would you be saying shit like that? I mean, there's just a lot of non-factual information from both sides. And I think the way you stay logical and reasonable and out of the emotions, which is good for your mental health, by the way. I mean, if you really want to screw up your brain, Yeah, get all emotional about this. Get all into the weeds and start arguing with everybody. That's really good for your mental health. Not if you want to be able to navigate these waters, I think question everything. Just because, Senator so-and-so says this, or Elon Musk says this, or President Trump says this, don't just take it at face value. Question it. Do some research. If it's important enough to you, you'll find that when you start doing that stuff, that most of the things that are happening really aren't that fucking important to you. What's important to me today is to go give my wife a hug, get some breakfast, enjoy my dogs. What am I going to do about it anyway? About some of this stuff, you already spoke when you voted. That was the time for you to speak.
So do you think that information security professionals should be more vocal about this, though? Like, do you think that they should be chiming in about the access that's being granted? Do you think that there's any significant risk that we should be more vocal about?
So our information security professionals, our industry is just as divided, if not more so, than the federal government or than the U.S. citizens. So you have the same kind of shit arguments, in the security industry. So, it depends on who you talk to, because we have emotions just like anybody else, so you'll get these emotional responses. I would question those things too. Logically, like truly, should I be concerned about this? No more than I should have been concerned about this 30 fucking years ago. The fact that we have, a social security number that I did not choose, that I cannot change, that tracks, my financials, tracks all these other things. That's a shitty design from the get-go. If you truly wanted to fix your privacy concerns, well, then you'd go back and redesign the system, that we use for it. But so logically, no, this is nothing for you to be concerned about. It's zero.
Yeah, my speaking of social security numbers, I mean, my wife's social security number got compromised, and it wasn't Doge that compromised it. It was some stupid medical place that did X-rays years ago or whatever and didn't secure their shit. And now my wife's social is out there. So, yeah, there's plenty of privacy issues to be concerned about all over the place.
Right. And the reason why people can't, pick something, right? Well, I'm going to get pissed at this. You're pissed at the fact that your privacy is gone and that somebody else controls it. That's legit, right? That's a legit frustration. But so then where do you point that frustration? You could point it at the government. You could point it at Doge. You could point at Change Healthcare. You could, take a pick. And the confusing thing is you can't pick them all. What's the common denominator in all this? It's the system itself. It's a shitty design. It was never designed for this to begin with, right? If you just take the social security number dynamic of this, it was never designed for what it's being used for. It was designed, originally to track a social security benefit piece. That was it. Mm-hmm. Somehow it found its way into tracking all of our financial information. Tracking became like the primary key in the database of me. And that's a shitty design. And if you wanted to design this properly, you would start with security in the middle of it, and we'd have to account for when something is, you can never get data back. So when sensitive data is exposed, you can never get it back. So then what can you do with it? Well, the next thing you can do is make it worthless. The way I make it worthless is I change it. We do the same thing with passwords, right? The password's exposed, you change it. So the password that the attacker got is worthless. Same thing with my social security number. The inefficiency and inability for me to change my social security number knowing that it's exposed is a shitty design,
So I guess I didn't even realize that. Is it you can't change your social security number?
Well, you can, but it's good luck. Yeah, you have to go to the Social Security Administration and go through all the steps, and you can. Yeah, there's stories, when you Google stories about people that have, had to reclaim their identity. It's a pain in the ass. And one of those pains in the asses is having to go get my social security number changed. And the reason why it's such a pain in the ass to get the social security number changed is because of all the fucking systems that it's tied into in the back end on the federal government side. Well, if we change your social security number, we have to change it in these other 1,000 different systems that are all reliant on that. So then it goes back to the Doge thing. Like, that's completely inefficient way to use that damn number. So why is it designed this way? I want somebody to make this more efficient. So again, if Doge is actually doing that, and if Doge can do that, I'm all for it. It lends itself to a much better security design. And we know at the core of most, if not all of the government systems is just shitty security, shitty design.
Do you think that we can fix it? Do you think that it's possible to kind of scrap it and start over or something?
It takes commitment. So yes, I think you can do it. I don't think people are going to commit to it because it's going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to be expensive. The end result, I mean, the logic would tell you either you fix it or it breaks. Like, just breaks. It's like not maintaining, it's like having a shitty design on a car and then not doing oil changes. I mean, eventually it's just going to stop. So eventually you get forced to, I think, change it, which would be a lot more painful than, I mean, the longer it goes on, the more the system expands, the harder I think it gets to change. Just, you start spinning up more databases and more shit that I have to go figure out. So I do like, I mean, if those two big ifs are the biggest question marks for me, is if Doge is actually doing what they say that it's doing and they can do it, we should all be for that. I benefit as a U.S. citizen from those things. But those are big ifs. In order for you to believe those two ifs, you're going to have to trust, Donald Trump, and you're going to have to trust Elon Musk. And there are some people that are just so emotionally sideways in all of this. I mean, you see them. You see them on social media. It's like, what? You have lost your fucking brain.
It's funny because, I don't know how many years ago, but 10 years ago or whatever, maybe more, people would have trusted the people that are against them. People would have trusted Donald Trump and Elon Musk. They were brilliant guys not that long ago. And then all of a sudden politics made everyone hate them.
Yeah. Well, it's where you're getting your inputs from. If you're getting your inputs from Hakeem Jeffries or, prominent political figures on the left, you would think these guys are Satan incarnate. Like, yes, we should. Yeah, you should kill him. That's crazy shit. Mm-hmm. Come on, really? And so on the left, that's the thing. You divide the people, get people to think with their emotions and not with their logic and reason, and you can manipulate people. That's how social engineering works. That's why you send those emails with urgent message and, oh my God, I got to act right now. You're capitalizing on the emotion, the fear. Like, oh, if I don't click this right now and log into the bank, all my money's going to be gone. Whereas if you took the time for the reason to play a role, you'd be like, wait a second, my bank doesn't do that. That doesn't make any sense. This could be a scam. People don't ask enough, like on the scam side of what your own government is doing to you.
Yeah. I mean, think about the amount of times that the word Nazi's been thrown around. Don't at me, whoever's listening. I'm not trying to make a political claim or anything, but I find it interesting how people just throw that word around. And it's like, I saw some article that listed out, people are calling Elon Musk a Nazi. And then it's like, you list out the things that Nazis actually believe and did. It's like, he's not doing any of that. And I don't understand, and that's what I mentioned earlier. It's like this, I don't have any emotions to give to it anymore. You're using these emotionally charged things. And I'm not trying to say that Elon Musk is a great model citizen or anything, but you start calling him a Nazi to me and it doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
It doesn't line up.
Well, that's where I think that's a healthy place for you to be, right? The thing is when you use words, like I shared the story of my own mother calling me a bigot. Like, what the hell? So I Googled bigot and read it out to her. This is me. And I read it out to her in a way that I wasn't like attacking you, but it was more like, if this is me, then all right, help me fix it. Cause that's obviously a bad thing. Right. So I read her the definition of bigot. I go, is this me? And she's like, well, no. I'm like, well, then why the fuck did you use that word? Because the truth of the matter is, when people can't defend their position with logic and reason, what they end up doing is changing the subject or attacking my character. That's what you do. The most classic way that you did this when you were a freaking child, the best way to attack, not the best, but the easiest way to attack somebody's character is to call them names. You did this, it's like some people having grown up out of the schoolyard as, grade schoolers. You're a jerk face. Like, what? You can't believe you call it. And instead of using those words, we're using things like Nazi, fascist.
Yeah. Words are meaningless these days. It's like, yeah. If my daughter came home and said someone called me a jerk face at the playground, I would probably just say, well, are you a jerk face? And she'd say no. Then
yeah. And that's the thing that we were taught as children, right? Was sticks and stones may break my bones. Names will never hurt me, right? Because you'd go through that same thing. Like, that guy just called me an asshole. Am I an asshole?
If you are.
No, well then I don't give a shit. But it's just classic, like social engineering, but just at a really grand scale. Call people names, demonize them, dehumanize them. Then it makes it much easier for me to hate them, because just innately we don't, outside of all these inputs and things, we don't hate people. But when you dehumanize people, it's easy to hate people.
Yeah, good point.
They just become an object, which is, I think, what led to a lot of the true Nazis and what they did to, the people that they exterminated. It was, they dehumanized them. They were human to them. And we have to watch out for that ourselves, right? You see a lot of that with, on the Muslim, Christian, these other angles. It's like, these are human beings, regardless of whether, their political or religious ideology is so different from yours. They're still human beings. Don't dehumanize them. Because there's lots of things I read about, people with different political or different ideologies that it's like, man, you are so like off on all this stuff. I try not to let emotion get into it, because then that's where hate comes. I mean, because he shut down a whole bunch of DEI stuff, and people are like, doesn't that piss you off? I'm like, well, no, because DEI was used against the people it was meant to help. If you look at like the way it was worked, why would I hire somebody just because of their color of their skin, or where an Asian person just for the sense that they're an Asian person? You miss out on what really is valuable about them, and it's what they think. It's their perspective. That's what I want, So yeah, there's dehumanizing that happens all over the place. So you've got the Doge side from that, where it's like those two F's for me. Like, if those are the things that are true, man, we should be embracing this from a security perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of a compelling thing earlier about when if Doge goes and starts auditing CISA. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, that's when you originally brought that up. I was like, okay, what happens when Doge gets to CISA? And CISA, for people who don't know, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, sometimes people call it, and it's under the Department of Homeland Security. That's where it fits. They call themselves America's Cybersecurity Agency or some shit, something like that. Now, when CISA first came out, which was during Trump's previous administration, by the way, it was like 2018, 2019. I was pretty pumped about it, because I thought, well, finally you can use the federal government's influence to get us speaking the same language, to get us marching to the beat of the same drum, and actually secure this stuff, right? Because you need that kind of approach, this top-down approach to do it. Well, since then, CISA spent $15 billion-ish, $18 billion. I don't know the exact number. I know that their budget in 2025 is about $3 billion. That's a lot of money. And so I look back and like, has security gotten better from 2018, 19 when it started to now? Have we gotten an $18 billion, $15 billion return on our investment? Or will we? I would love to have that type of look into that agency. We should all be open to that. Like every security program that I've ever run, I want the scrutiny. It gives me an opportunity to demonstrate the value that I brought to the company. what better way to do that than have an auditor come and audit my security team? The only reason why I would be fearful of that is, I think, two reasons. The audit isn't actually being used for that purpose. It's being used to catch me or get me, stab me in the back. If you work in that kind of company and political environment, get the fuck out of there anyway. The other, I want the audit because I want opportunities to demonstrate the value I'm providing to the company, but I also want advice on how to do things better. Where am I misaligned?
Yeah. I mean, security is one of those things, we talk about it a lot, that like you can easily throw a lot of money at the problem and the problem it's not helping resolve the problem. It's just money thrown at the wall, kind of.
Right. So I would love an audit of CISA. I would love, because one of the things that was frustrating with CISA to me is that you were already throwing billions and billions of dollars at CISA, and they didn't even have a strategic plan until year and a half ago. So it was like, I don't understand how you do that. Like if I was going to give you money, like you came to me, so I'm I don't know.
Your Shark Tank.
Yeah, you were going to come to money and say, hey, I need X millions of dollars for my organization. Kind of the first thing I'd ask would be like, what are you going to use it for?
Yeah.
And I think that what we were going to use it for at CISA was just kind of some nebulous, there was some documented, like, this is what CISA does, but there was no substance to take it down to the street level so that, again, we're all marching to the beat of the same drum. Like CISA itself needs to do that before we go out and get the rest of the United States to do that. And I think CISA lost its way a lot kind of through all of that. I think there's a lot of really good people that work at CISA. I think it just wasn't used right. And so I would love to have an audit of it so that we can really repurpose, potentially put it back on the tracks a little bit more.
How have you been involved with CISA at all? Like, have you rubbed elbows with a lot of those people and tried to influence some of their stuff?
Until they realize who I am, Yeah, people don't like the truth. There's a reason why they say politically correct. It's politically correct, right? I'm not political. So if I think your shit stinks, I'll say your shit stinks and maybe my perspective is incorrect on it. So then let's have that discussion. So I think CISA the federal government in general doesn't like to be challenged. We're CISA. This is how we do it. Well, that doesn't fucking work. And so they put together things like, certain committees and things where bring the private sector in to design things. But the people that they're bringing into those private sector things have bias to sell you more shit. There's the most powerful players in our industry are, Microsoft, Amazon, Google. It's big tech, right? And big tech, it's counter to securing big tech is counter to big tech making money sometimes. So it's a political shit show, in my opinion, with CISA. And so I think I'm too much of a disruptor. But I think it needs disrupting. Like, stay focused on what the fuck you're doing. The biggest money pits with CISA, just from my own observations and perspective, you have lots and lots of programs, overlapping programs, and lots of bureaucracy. Right? It's just like when you go to CISA's website, it's confusing as fuck. There's like free resources there's not a strategic direction, even from the messaging standpoint. So that's like there's a whole bunch of really expensive reports that they've paid for that kind of went nowhere. There was nothing happened. It's just a whole bunch of really cool data things and cool graphics and cool marketing stuff, but that was it. It's like that was the purpose. The purpose was to justify. The purpose was like, here, look at all the cool shit. But when the purpose should have been, let's fix the cool shit, or let's fix this shit. It's not that cool. You know what I mean? There's a lack of transparency in some of that. Overpriced vendor contracts, lots of vendor contracts that if you audited them, you would find out that they're paying way too much money for a lot of shit. And CISA is still way too reactive. You get the messages all the time about the latest vulnerabilities and things. Well, that's all reactive. How do we position the United States to be more proactive? And in order for you to do that, you have to define what proactive means. You have to create some common method of doing things across the board. You have to have a common understanding of what your most significant risks are so that you can focus everybody on those things. Stuff's missing from CISA.
You think it's hard to
audit the shit out of it?
Yeah. You think it's hard to, like, in the government, it's taxpayer money. And it's just, and when you think it's hard to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Like maybe efficient or maybe frugal with money that's just kind of there versus like, a company where you're like earning money. And like, you think it's just hard to kind of manage that money properly when it's just this lump sum of money that you just kind of got?
I think maybe. I think it depends on why you're in the game. You know what I mean? Why are you here? Like I as a security person, I like to be held accountable. I like to set that example. So if you like being accountable, then I want to be accountable with the money. There are certain things, because the false things are like, well, if you're transparent about all this stuff, well then, it's insecure. Like, well, no, there's certain things that you can be completely transparent about that will have no damage to me if everybody knows. It's those other things, like the details. It's funny because I just started therapy this week. My wife, I've been talking about it for a while. And my wife's like, yeah, you don't have to share anything. I'm like, I want to share. I want to share these things that are going, obviously there'll be little details that, you want to keep out of the discussion. Same kind of thing with, like, if you gave me $3 billion to run CISA, I would be very focused on, this is what you get, U.S. government, citizens, for that $3 billion you're spending. This is your return on that investment. Is this a good return? If not, then let's work on making it better. There's not enough of that accountability and collaboration, I think.
Yeah.
Hold people accountable.
No, you're right. You gotta be transparent. I mean, the results are only as good as the, how honest you were about it.
Well, and let the U.S. people, and they do, but they don't put it. I mean, you can find the information. You can find what CISA's budget is, and you can make your own judgment on what you got for that return. It's not like it's not there. It's just not front and center. It's not a focus. There's a lot of just extraneous information that distracts the shit out of people before they even get there. I think it should be much more front and center across the entire government. This is what you get. This is how much we spend. This is what you get for it. And then let them make a decision on whether that's what they want for it. So if Doge is doing that kind of stuff, I'm 100% before it. If it's being used to, because some people say it's being used to enrich the rich, to control, to manipulate. Well,
is that something that we won't find out until it's too late?
It's something that it's already being done. I mean, it's just somebody else is doing it, right? So it's not that it's too late. I mean, it was too late because it was a shit design to begin with. So it's like, you're already being used. You're already being manipulated. This information is already out there. It's already in the control of somebody. Do you trust that somebody? No.
It's a great point. Who, if it's not Elon and his team going through it, who is the guy? I want to see that guy. Who's the guy that has my stuff? And what's he doing?
Well, there is. And they call it, if you just want to, because that hasn't been, I think, really well identified. So we just generically call it bureaucracy. The bureaucrats are doing that. Well, there's somebody beyond that, that's just logic would tell you. So yes, you are right. You are already being used. You are already being manipulated. At least if Elon Musk and Trump are doing it, now I can put a face to it. I can't put a face to it on the bureaucrat thing. I just know the system's screwed up, and I know that it doesn't work for me or you. So yeah, let's shake it up. I mean, logically.
Well, was this helpful? I mean, I feel like we did a good job of being, I don't think we were too controversial, were we?
I don't want to be. I mean, I want to be controversial when I have something to back it up with truth. I don't want to be controversial if I'm capitalizing or taking advantage of your emotions. So I think everything that we shared, you and I are both open to challenge on it. I think we were careful not to rush to judgment.
I am completely open to that. I don't trust anyone right now to be, I mean, this is probably the most open conversation publicly that I've even had on some of like these type of topics, because I don't trust anyone to have a reasonable conversation with me. I don't trust that I can say whatever I want as I'm trying to formulate my own opinion without being like persecuted for even suggesting anything. And that's a horrible place to be in the world when you can't have those kind of conversations.
I think so. I think it's dangerous. It's dangerous for us collectively. I think it's dangerous for you personally, because you have these thoughts, you have these feelings, and you got to get them out. I mean, that's just part of the therapeutic process, processing what you're talking about, what you're going through. We've created in a lot of spots, it's not everywhere. We've just created in a lot of places where there's not enough places to do that without being attacked. So then you open yourself for attack. Honestly, I don't give a shit. Attack me. Think I'm an asshole. Call me whatever names you want to call me, just like my own mother, who we have a great relationship, right? We're very close, me and my mother. But my own mother called me a bigot. So if you call me a bigot or a racist or a fascist or a Nazi, I'm going to process that. And the process that I'll go through is like, am I? No. Then fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people need to do, I think, more of that. Just like if somebody thinks that you're whatever, Jordan, they don't know you. Who cares? Have them take the time to get to know you first.
I think my biggest fear sometimes, it's like, I don't care. Names won't hurt me if you disagree with something that I think, or just sometimes I don't even know what I think. I'm just like to talk about things to still form an opinion. But I think my biggest fear is losing the influence with that person, being completely shut out, because that's what, it's like, you can call me whatever you want, but if you now, because of whatever you disagreed with me on, if you now shut the door and I can no longer influence you, or, that might not even be the best word, but just, converse with you. Like that's what I don't want to happen. That's why I do sometimes tiptoe around things, because I'm like, if I say the wrong thing and they just now I'm dead to them, I've lost this kind of relationship where I can even, impact their life at all. And I don't want.
Well, but I think the healthy thing there is it's not your problem. That's not my problem. If you're going to rush like that and close me out of your life, you never liked me. You never loved me to begin with, because you never understood me. If you truly understood me, you would know where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is to be helpful, to show love, to show grace. And if you took it the wrong way, that's on you. The cool thing is there's another 7 point some odd billion people that I can go out and, start the same kind of things, right? I mean, closed-mindedness, that's bigotry. Thanks, Mom, for teaching me what bigot means, because I've had people do that, like, oh, you voted for Trump, so can't be friends with you. Number one, I didn't vote for Trump because I didn't fucking vote, because I live in Mexico. It got messed up. And number two, if you're that shallow that you're going to throw away a friendship, throw away a relationship based on one action, that's your problem. It's not mine. I'll go find other loving people that will support me and help me try to live, a happy life. So I get it, man. There are certain people that I really like them. I like their company. I don't want them to leave. But if you can't accept me for who I am, you shouldn't have been here anyway.
Great point.
Including my wife. I mean, thank God we do accept each other. But, if she got to a point where she couldn't accept me for who I am, well, then I mean, God, that's a bad place to be in a marriage. It's much better than that, than her accepting a fake version of me because I'm too afraid to share the real me. Because then I got to keep up personas. I suck at that. I forget what persona I'm in.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I mean, who wants to be loved for this person that you isn't actually you?
Right? Yeah. And you see a lot of that in our industry. I was talking to a friend last night about that. Like, we have a mutual friend who I think is struggling with keeping up a persona, keeping up a not authentic version of themselves. And I think you do that long enough, there's a lot of that in this industry. You do that long enough, I think it really fucks up your mental health.
Yeah, I bet.
Anyway, good episode, Jordan.
All right. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way.
Happy Valentine's Day. How do you do the hard thing? I can never do that. It looks like that.
Oh, yeah. Look, that's a good one. Because I got thumbs that bend backwards. Your thumbs bend backwards?
My face. Yeah, I'm taking my wife out to dinner. Hopefully this cold holds off long enough or allows me to go do that. I'm excited. I actually took the initiative to do that myself. She goes, "Oh, you're romantic." I'm like, "Yeah, baby."
That's right. Evan romance.
Yep. All right. It's nap time, man. Good
All right.
talk.
All right. See you.
See you next episode.